My first Airbnb deal was actually 2 units at once in Panama City Beach, Florida. So quick backstory, me and my business partner, Jack, started this business. And when we first started, it took us 4 to 5 months of constant no's, constant rejection, landlords shutting us down and hanging up the phone on us until we finally came across an apartment unit with 2 open units that, what we thought allowed Airbnb, gave us a shot and an opportunity to sign a lease with them. Jack and I were so ecstatic. We finally found a yes, and really it blinded us to a lot of the things that we should have been looking out for on the front end. And is what we realized really quickly is these deals look super good on paper, but we didn't do our full due diligence just because we were so excited about a yes, so excited to get started in Airbnb, force these deals to work and make them make sense. And that is one of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of operators that are jumping into the game, not knowing how to underwrite deals correctly, not knowing how to budget correctly, thinking that any deal is a good deal, and that's just not the case at all. I want to talk about what went wrong first with these 2 units that we took on. So Jack and I, again, we were so ecstatic to take these deals on that we did not do the due diligence that was needed when you're taking on an Airbnb deal and making this a full-time business. So let's start with number 1, our lease addendum and our lease contract. Jack and I didn't know anything about a lease addendum. We didn't have a lease addendum built out that's going to protect us from these situations and making sure that we're protected as Airbnb arbitrage investors. And if we need to exit, we have one. We didn't have any of that. So we signed their typical standard lease with no clause in there that said we could do any sort of short-term rental. We just took it word for mouth from the operator themselves. We didn't do our checking. We just like, okay, they said we can do it. Cool. Let's sign the lease and move forward. Big red flag, guys. Do not sign any sort of lease without strictly giving you permission to run this unit as a short-term rental. On top of that, you need to be protected with the lease addendum that's going to give you exits out of any situation if HOA shuts down, if regulations change in the city, if short-term rentals get banned. You need to have exits in place because that is a real possibility when running a short-term rental business, okay? So first off, and I'll get back to why that one was probably the worst part of this whole thing. Second one, we heard from somebody that we need to be fully furnishing every single Airbnb unit that we come across. So what did we do? We went out and spent 10 grand a pop on both of these units to get them quote unquote Airbnb ready. And we didn't have any sort of budget in mind. We just knew we needed to furnish them, get it listed, and hopefully see some cash flow. So we didn't have any sort of underwriting budget going on. We didn't know that we were overspending and way over leveraging ourselves, and we weren't having a favorable payback time. And this is a huge red flag I see. Still, people to this day are wanting to fully furnish, drop 20, 25 grand to furnish a property, which never makes sense in Airbnb arbitrage when we're leasing these properties and we don't own them, right? So that's something I can't get over. We spent 10 grand a pop. That put us 20 grand all in on units that probably weren't going to break even for us for 9 to 10 months. It's very, very risky when you look at it on the short-term play that you are with these leases, right? Third, I want to talk about how we just didn't fully account for all the operating expenses that were coming up, right? We did base underwriting with base expenses, base utilities, nothing more. We didn't think about what it would cost to bring a VA on, what it costs for the softwares, what insurance costs in Florida. All of these things that you need to operate a successful Airbnb and run this as a full-time business, we didn't account for. So as soon as we start listing, we're getting hit with fees that we never accounted for and wondering why our cash flow is not lining up, right? Going back to the reason I say that our lease didn't protect us is because 2 weeks into renting, these properties are doing good. We're getting bookings. We're seeing the proof of concept that this can work and that this is real. We get a call from the property manager saying we need to take our listings down on Airbnb. And we fight tooth and nail about them saying we got written permission, but they said that they didn't approve Airbnb. They just approved doing short-term stays through Furnished Finder, through all these other softwares that didn't include Airbnb or VRBO. So for Jack and I mean, our business is dead in the water, right where it started. We don't know what to do. So we have to come together as business professionals here and say, hey, look, we're 20 grand in the hole right now with furniture. And we have units that we can't operate anymore. What are we going to do? So eventually we agreed to some sort of agreement with the property management group. They said, hey, we'll give you your security deposits. You got to be out by the end of the month. So we throw all that furniture in a storage unit. And long story short, we're back at square one. We have 0 units to our name, nothing to show for our business, but 20 grand in credit card debt. And that's where I see, if I can help anybody make the right decision moving forward on this, that's what I'm going to do. So I want to walk you through just what it looks like to pick a good deal and look at the numbers, look at the underwriting, do all the necessary things to be successful with it. Real problem, guys, wasn't any of that. It was that AirDNA misled me. And I want to take full responsibility of everything that went wrong. So nothing that happened was random. It wasn't that Airbnb didn't work. It's because I didn't do the necessary things to ensure that my deal was going to be profitable. Airbnb worked. I was getting the bookings, but more so than ever, I analyzed this deal completely wrong, right? I want to talk really quick about gross revenue versus net profit and what that looks like. When I plug these addresses into AirDNA, I'm not looking for a comp set. I was just pulling up, and whatever number it showed me, that's what I was going to go off of. And that's the whole problem with all of this is AirDNA, they'll show you data, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good data, right? They're just going to show you everything that they're pulling from across Airbnb as a whole. All the listings, good, bad, listed for a little bit or listed up to 365 days. They're going to give it to you all. We have to be the ones that are going to go in and make sure that we're picking out the good deals, the actual comps, and making sure that the data we're looking at is favorable for us so that we can make a good decision based on that information. So none of this was because of Airbnb. None of this was because of AirDNA. It's because I, as a business operator, didn't do the due diligence that was needed, which was going through AirDNA, making sure that I knew how to comp these deals correctly. I want to brief on the old process and the way I used to look at deals that got me into this deal, like the PCB one, right? So I used to plug in the address right into AirDNA, see what the monthly projections are going to be. Something like this unit was looking at $4,500 a month in gross revenue. I was like, all day long, we'll take this deal. There's enough profit built in. There's enough margin built in. Let's go. I'm all for it. And I assumed average occupancy. And what was average to me isn't average to the market. I was seeing all these operators out there that if you list it the right way and you make the necessary adjustments, you run this as a real business and optimize all the facets of this business, you'll hit that 80 to 85% occupancy. So what did I put in there? I put 85% occupancy on this deal. So just overestimating what this property could do based on just the ignorance of myself and my business partner being in this business and being so new to it. And that was another issue. It's like every expense that came up, we weren't prepared for. So we didn't realize the cleaning fees that were going to take place. The cleaning fees were fine if we had a 3, 4, 5 night booking. But when we had a single day booking and we had a cleaning fee on top of that, it's like we were breaking even on the day. And we didn't think about how many turns there were going to be in 1 month and how quickly that cleaning fee just stacks up over time. We didn't think about utilities. We underestimated across the board on all utilities. I mean, electric, water, sewer. You need to be dialed in on those numbers because every $50, $100 matters when we're looking at a couple $1,000s in cash flow, right? So we underestimated what those utilities were actually going to cost rather than reaching out to people in the area with Airbnbs and picking their brain on what they were spending monthly, summer versus winter, hot season versus cold season, getting an average of all those numbers so we can really accurately tie in what we're going to make per month on this unit. That was the key, and we missed it. We missed it so bad. And then just on top of that is like the random issues that come into place, right? So the chips in the wall, the chips in the paint, the broken knobs, the little maintenance items that you don't account for, but that is on you as a short-term rental investor, and you sign that lease knowing that you're going to make sure you take care of all the wear and tear. And the things like that happen, you have to fix. So hiring a handyman to come out there and fix those are all adding up and going against you when you were trying to underwrite a deal and make sure it's going to be profitable enough. And so take it from Jack and I mean, we missed on all of those aspects. And if I can help you not make that same mistake, that's what I'm going to try and do. PCB worked. It was going to work great if everything went perfectly. I had it underwritten for everything to go perfectly, and then that deal would have been super solid. I mean, super solid. But that's the thing. This is Airbnb. This is a short-term rental, and nothing goes perfectly. You need to be conservative on your numbers so that you're hoping for the best, but prepared for the worst, if that makes sense. I have to be prepared that stuff's going to go wrong. And if I still have margin left over for this to be profitable, that's the deal I'm chasing. That's the deal I want. And at the end of the day, the beauty of those PCB units is what it did for Jack and I, what it taught us really. Because moving forward after that, we knew that any deal that we stepped into, we needed to overanalyze. We needed to overestimate on all the costs and all the expenses that we needed to account for, because we needed to make sure, even if our numbers were super conservative, there was still enough margin for us to make a profit, because that's how you're going to scale. If you scoop up enough units like that, you're giving yourself plenty of room to make mistakes and learn and keep scaling. And that's exactly what it did for us. Every deal from there on that we're plugging into AirDNA, we're deciphering the comps. We're making sure we're comparing apples to apples. We're really looking at the fine details, because the stress from those units is what realize, okay, we need to get into units that are going to be a lot more calm. We're going to know how to work these. We're going to know what the numbers are going to say. We're going to make more than what we're projecting, because that's how good and tight we're running these numbers. It's these deals that barely worked versus the deals that felt really easy, right? So when we're having to force the numbers on deals, we know that that's not something we want to take on. The numbers need to just be there in plain sight for us. We need to almost come up with a reason why it's not good enough. Play devil's advocate a little bit, because again, it is the most important and the most crucial part of Airbnb arbitrage is underwriting your deal correctly and making sure you're not taking what AirDNA, what Price Labs, Revenue Estimator, what B&B Calc is saying for face value. You need to really, really look into it and pick out the data that's most important. But really what we learned from that is any deal moving forward, we needed it to be, I'm sure you've heard of the 2X rule. And if you haven't, the 2X rule is that your monthly rent needs to be, or your monthly gross revenue needs to be 2X what your monthly rent is, right? So if a property is going to cost me $2,000 a month for rent, that property needs to generate $4,000 of monthly gross revenue for this deal to make sense, and there be enough margin in there for me. A lot of people are taking on 1.5x deals, which I think is still, there's room there and there's margin to do. But what we're really after is those 2x deals, because that's where we know we have the biggest return. Once I realized if a unit isn't clearing that 1.5x rule, we're literally just buying ourselves a more stressful job, because all we're doing is overanalyzing every single day and realizing that we're overspending and barely breaking even for a job that's taking up a ton of our time. So I would rather take the time on the front end to find the properties that have that 2x return, that 1.75x return, and those are the deals I'm going after, because I know that they have the margin built in for me. So I can't really go wrong there, if that makes sense. And after we learned how to underwrite the deals, everything just got so much better. But with that, we also learned that PCB might not be the sexiest deal that we need to be choosing. We got sold by the upside of the summer months for Panama City Beach, Florida. Oh, it was amazing. You were going to make a ton of revenue in your summer months, but no, we weren't prepared for how fragile the rest of the season was. And I guess you could say, luckily, we didn't even make it to that part because we were out of those units so quickly. But if you don't have a game plan for the slow season, you're in for a heck of a ride. And a couple good months in summer does not make up for the slow months that are coming. And it really just dwindles down a deal, especially when it comes to underwriting if you're not prepared for that slow of season. But from there, that's when we switched our pivot point and we knew that, okay, we know what to look for. We know how to underwrite a deal. Where's next? Where are we going? Right? And so Jack and I really went to the drawing board and found a market that we thought was fantastic. We looked in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we found a deal that was fully furnished that we were able to get into. And let me just tell you, Scottsdale, Arizona is probably the best market we've ever been into for short-term rentals. I feel like Scottsdale really showed us how Airbnb is supposed to feel. Our months were killer there. We were, this was probably a 2.5x return deal for us. And it was killer. We were cash flowing several $1,000s a month from this property. It was literally the best market to this day that we've ever been in. So that's the kind of markets we want to look for, where there's very strong demand, where maybe there is a little bit of a permit process to get your hands on or to get in the door. Because when you see that permit process, a lot of other operators are going to flee. But if there's steps to take that we can get a permit, I'm all about getting that permit, because that just means less demand for us, right? Or less supply, I'd say, and then more demand. In all reality, though, Scottsdale was great. We pivoted over to Nashville. Nashville was consistent. There's a strong demand there. There's less emotional volatility. And what I mean by that is the seasonality is pretty straightforward. You're going to get booked all year round in Nashville. And those units have been so killer for us. So what happened in PCB taught us so much about moving forward and growing our business into the way we wanted to make it. And it all starts with doing your due diligence and really making sure you're underwriting these deals correctly, because any market will have a good deal as long as you do your underwriting. And as we scaled from Scottsdale to Nashville, we got ourselves into Houston, Texas, and this is probably one of our proudest moments as Airbnb operators. We negotiated a fantastic deal with the landlord, all utilities included in the rent, negotiated the rent price down a little bit, got 6 weeks free to set up the unit on the front end. So just crazy good deal. This property came semi-furnished, so we really didn't have to spend that much on actually furnishing the property. It gave us way more opportunity to convert the garage into a full game room, get custom Houston murals throughout the house and in the game room to really boost the appearance on Airbnb was the biggest thing. We wanted this property to look fantastic and outbeat the comps. And our spring and summer months were just absolutely killer. I mean, this property has been one of our most sound properties, and just it made us really feel like we did this thing the right way. This deal made sense completely, and that's exactly what we went for and wanted to show with this Houston property. So all in all, what we learned from those PCB deals was there's ways to fix it. It was up to us if we weren't going to give up right there or just really lock in and learn this business model and keep going, and that's what we did. But now I want to talk really quickly about how we comp deals now, because that's the moral of this story, and the most important part is the underwriting is so important. The markets, you can go with several different options. The look of the property, you can go with several different options. But if you don't get this one key piece right, you will never scale a profitable Airbnb portfolio. And that is the underwriting of the deal, right? So when I'm looking at occupancy rates now, I'm going very conservative. Conservative means 70%, 65 to 70% on my occupancy rate across any market. That's going to give me a good idea of what this property can generate on a very conservative side, right? ADR is fine, but let's knock that occupancy down to give us a very conservative side. If we hit that 80, 85%, that's fantastic. We're doing everything right, and we're accounting for money that we didn't think we had, which is awesome. We want our rent to be under 40% of the revenue, right? If we have that built in, that our rent's under 40% of the revenue, we're giving ourselves a ton of margin there for any maintenance costs, any cleaning fees that we didn't think we were going to have, any little issues with the property that are going to come when you're operating an Airbnb. We wanted to set ourselves up for success in that area, and that's how we look at those deals right now. Another thing we do is we pad our expenses completely. So when we're doing our underwriting sheet, we're making sure to bump up all those little fees, all those little utilities, software costs, insurance costs, you name it, we're adding extra dollars on there because, again, I said it all video long, we want to make sure that we are being so conservative and overestimating what we're going to have to pay to keep this property up and running, right? It's really, at the end of the day, it sums to one way of thinking, and it's worst case thinking, right? So I don't ask what if everything goes right anymore. I more so change that to what if this property goes a little wrong? Where am I going to be sitting at from a cash flow perspective? And really, if you want the breakdown of how Jack and I scaled from 0 to 10 properties in 2.5 years, Jack and I created a short video training on what that looks like, what we're looking at in the market, how we're underwriting these deals, how we're comping these deals, and how we're coming across these great deals that I'm talking about when we're running our numbers super conservative. Click the link in the description below. It's no sales or anything. It's just a script that Jack and I put together that we want to give to anyone else that really needs the help on trying to put these deals together themselves, because it is an art that you need to learn. And Jack and I tried to break it down fully for you in that video. Anyways, let's get back to it. So why this matters so much going into 2026 too is something I want to talk about, because all we're seeing from our perspective since we've been in this business since 2023 is margins are tightening, guys. Margins are getting very tight. Deals are looking worse than they ever have before, but that's a good thing. That means we can still win, and if we find the right deals, we're in a much better position than all the other competition we're facing out there. So I love that. There's also so much less room for sloppy math, right? You cannot underwrite a deal poorly or you will get punished for it. Literally, the market today punishes the version of Jack and I that did that PCB deal. It punishes us. We would not make it out alive doing that. So you have to make those adjustments and you have to underwrite deals the correct way. And going into 2026, guys, hate to break it to you, but there's more competition than ever, and there's going to continue to be more competition. So if we want to separate ourselves from the competition and really build a business that's going to last, it's going to come down to who can underwrite the deals the best. Cold calling, all that comes naturally. It'll come with you as you practice. We got to practice the underwriting of the deals because that's where the money is made in this business, and that's how you go from 0 to 10 units. Guys, that's what separates people who are still doing Airbnb arbitrage to this day versus the people that are getting kicked out, versus the people that are struggling to break even and have to eventually just move out of this business model. It's not about finding some magic market or the secret listing optimization tips that people talk about. Although those are very important, we need to make sure we understand those. But it all comes down to the one underlying point of how are we underwriting these deals, because that is the most important thing if we're going to scale a long-term professional Airbnb business. It's about comping deals correctly and having the discipline to walk away from a deal if the numbers don't make sense, right? That's what we have to train ourselves to do and put that effort into the front end so that we can make sure that we're only looking at and talking to competent, good deals.